What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. In this one, we're going to go over, I guess, the biggest takeaways from week one as far as situations that maybe confused us, maybe surprised us, maybe that we need to dive deeper into, because week one was a little bit brutal, right? Like a lot of, high-end offenses failed. We had the Bills scoring 16, the Titans scored 13, the Packers somehow scored 3 points, and then a ton of elite players we know are going to be fantastic this season, put up duds. We look at running backs, all of Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Zeke, Barkley, Aaron Jones. Well, they rank outside the top 25 right now. Wide receiver, Metcalf, AJ Brown, Diggs, Jefferson all rank outside the top 25. You've got McLaurin, Allen Robinson, Devonta Adams, Calvin Ridley all rank outside the top 50 right now. Like, there were for sure some spiked weeks, but a lot of big name players busted. A lot of things happened that we did not think were going to happen, right? So for most of you, you've done this for a long time. You cannot overreact to what happens in 1 week. This is week one. This is one of 17 games. This is not what we're going to see happen every single week, right? Everyone I just mentioned is going to have a major role in their offense. Every single player on the list besides McCaffrey is going to have multiple dud games, so you're going to be disappointed in other weeks as well. That is just how it goes. But there are some situations that we absolutely need to go over because they're more complex, for some of them at least. They're more complex than just, everyone knows Derrick Henry just had a dud. He's going to be fine. I think you guys should understand that, Devonta Adams just had a dud. He's going to be fine, right? But what happened with the 49ers? Mainly their running back mess, and this weird Brandon Aiyuk situation, this Pollard and Zeke split, the Packers struggles, the Jaguars running backs, Jameis Winston. We're also going to go over the football team, like the outlook of them after this Fitz injury, as well as the Lions running back. So a lot of different things to go over. Of course, if I don't touch on something, well, we've got the trade targets for like sell highs, buy lows. We've got, the running back, wide receiver start sits video. Like, we're going to be doing other videos. So I don't have to go over everything all in this video. We'll touch on other things later. Also, I'm not going to be going over the Baltimore backfield because, of course, I have to record that before the game. We're expecting Tyson Williams to get the bulk of the carries, but whatever happens in that game, I'm going to go over in future videos this week. So that's why I'm not touching on whatever happens for you guys. You guys already know it. I don't know what's going to happen in that game. We'll touch on that later. So first things first, though, got to start things off as usual with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was through Sunday. Which running back currently leads the league in rushing yards? Answers: Joe Mixon. I don't know who got that right yet. I will put that in the comment section below. Today's stat: who leads all tight ends in route percentage in week one? So route percentage is let's just say a quarterback dropped back 100 times, right? And they ran 70 pass routes. That is a 70% route percentage. So the percentage of routes they ran on dropbacks. Who had the highest percentage among tight ends? All right, so let's go over these situations. And first up, the biggest situation is just the 49ers, just the absolute mess of what happened over there. So we see Sunday morning, 11:30, we see the inactives. Trey Sermon, healthy scratch. So he didn't suffer an injury. He's not going on COVID IR. Healthy scratch. That left the backfield down to Raheem Mostert, Elijah Mitchell, and Jermichael Hasty. But then Mostert, who's going to obviously be the lead back, well, he gets hurt. So now we've got two guys that were being drafted in the middle, late rounds. I don't remember exactly what round, maybe that 7th round range, or a healthy scratch and out. And now we see, right before I hit record here, Mostert is going to miss 8 weeks. So he's missing most of the season. So now we're down to 3 running backs. After the game, Kyle Shanahan comes out and he says that this was not an injury. He confirms, this was not an injury. Elijah Mitchell and Jermichael Hasty just beat out Trey Sermon in camp. Now, one thing here is that the beat reporters in the 49ers are clearly awful, right? If they weren't reporting this at all. They weren't reporting anything we saw on Sunday at all. This news all comes out after. Like, how much can we really trust the 49ers beat reporters at this point? If they can't notice that Trey Sermon is clearly the fourth running back, like, something weird is happening over there. But regardless, it's important to know, Trey Sermon's talented, but Shanahan comes out after the game and he says that he got beat out by Elijah Mitchell and Jermichael Hasty. That is very important. But then he says that there's no firm hierarchy. So Elijah Mitchell was clearly the guy they wanted to use after Mostert went down this week. But that does not mean that next week it's not going to be Hasty. And the week after that, it's not going to be Trey Sermon. And so I know this isn't like a free agency video, but this will actually go up before you guys have to make that final decision. Just know that. If you look at the website, he's very clearly the top waiver ad. Every website you're going to look at is going to tell you Elijah Mitchell is the #1 waiver ad this week. And he is. I'm not trying to talk you off that. Just understand, please, that this is the 49ers. Shanahan is just very clearly not going to stick to one guy. They're going to be rotating guys. So don't spend your entire budget, okay? I'll tell you right now, I put it at like 30%, but that's just like a guess. And that really comes down to your running back core. If I've got an awesome running back core, I'm not spending 30% on Elijah Mitchell because I don't have supreme confidence that he's going to be the guy. Obviously, his value is going to be high now because Mostert is done for like a good chunk of the season. And he I would say is more talented than Jermichael Hasty. So like it does seem like Mitchell's the guy right now. But if you just like told me, you're like, hey, Nick, I'm from the future. Okay, it's week 7 and Trey Sermon's been crushing, I wouldn't be surprised, okay? I also wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Mitchell is crushing. I don't think anyone can possibly know, and so please don't spend your entire budget on a situation that we don't know. The only thing we know is that they're just going to rotate different running backs over hot, so if Elijah Mitchell stays hot, he's going to be the guy. So that's just my take on that situation. Just understand that, like, this is bad for Sermon. This is very, very bad. He might have a chance now that Mostert's out, but this is not a good look on Sermon. Now we need to move over to Aiyuk, and this is a different one, but it's depending on who you listen to. So we saw a beat report come out earlier today for me, it'd be yesterday for you guys, that was like he's still learning how to be a pro, and he really fell off at the end of camp, and that's why he got benched. But here's the thing, like, that is not what Shanahan said. Like, he came out and he said Trey Sermon got beat out, right? He didn't come out and say Aiyuk got beat out. What Shanahan said was, okay, Aiyuk had a hamstring injury, and that happened late in camp, and he wasn't able to get fully ready for week 1, and they didn't want to push him out there and have him injure himself again. Like, he was still recovering. They didn't want to throw him out there for a ton. And he said, and Sheffield, like, he earned snaps, right? He was good in camp. He earned snaps. That doesn't mean he beat out Brandon Aiyuk. It just means that he earned snaps that they can give him while Aiyuk is still working his way back from injury. That's how I'm reading the situation, and especially because if these reports had come out from beat reporters, right, before the fact, then I'd have a different take. If, like, last week, beat reporters were saying, Brandon Aiyuk, he's just not performing that well, he's really falling off, he's probably not going to be in the game plan, and then we see Sunday happen, that's one thing. But for there to be zero reports about any of this, and then all of a sudden after a game, beat reporters like, oh yeah, he was falling off the end of camp. I mean, come on. Like, if he was actually falling off the camp, you'd have reported that before it happened, right? At least you'd think you would. You wouldn't do it after he has a bad week. So I don't fully buy this report, especially, again, because Shanahan said something differently. He said that it was the injury. That's why he wasn't seeing a full amount of snaps. So that's just how I'm reading it. Regardless, though, you cannot be playing Aiyuk right now. Like, in their next game, you can't be playing him. He could go out there and dud again. We simply don't know. And when we don't know, we don't put people into our starting lineup, okay? Especially because you didn't draft him as your 1, right? You drafted him as your 2 or your flex option. And so you've got to have something on your bench, especially because it's at wide receiver. And we all drafted super deep teams at wide receiver. put him on your bench, see what happens over these next few weeks. You've got wide receiver options that'll be able to play ahead of him, especially because, we're early in the season, there's no bye weeks, and so keep him on your bench. I'm not trading for him because that possibility does still exist that maybe he did get beat out and maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. I think it's a very low likelihood outcome, but because that exists and because we're so close to drafts, people still have that prior in their head of, oh, well, I drafted him in like the 5th or the 6th round, and so that's the value I'm going to ask for if I'm trying to trade for him. No, like I'm not trading for him at the value of 5th or 6th round pick. If someone's willing to dump him to me for like a low end bench option, I'll absolutely take that. But that's not going to happen. People are still going to ask a lot. And so just wait this one out. Just put him on the bench, wait and see what happens. Don't go out and trade for him. Don't trade him away for nothing. Let's wait for the hamstring injury to be fully good to go. And if they're still not playing him, then we have a problem and we need to reassess after that. Next up, we got this Zeke and Pollard situation. And I think people are overreacting to this one for sure. Zeke out-snapped Pollard 70-20. He out-touched him 13-7. Zeke was given the only goal line carry. He was given one of the team's 2 targets inside the 10-yard line. So if we're looking at all those plays, like Zeke was featured in the red zone, featured close to the goal line. I fully agree that Zeke did not look good and that Pollard should be getting more touches, but we need to recognize that the Cowboys' game plan in week 1 was looking at this incredible Bucs defense that is going to stop them on the ground, that is paired with an offense that is going to put up points. They had to know that their optimal game strategy was not running Zeke into a wall 30 times. And then they came out and that was very, very clear they were going to throw it, especially because it matches up with their offense. They're very good at passing the ball. And so that was their only way of winning. And it almost worked. They almost pulled off the upset, throwing the ball a ton. So it's not surprising that Zeke had a low touch count. He was inefficient in the game against a really, really good defense. This was just likely the worst spot of the entire season for Zeke. It was a difficult matchup, garbage game script for him. Not a good game plan when they were going in, at least for like if you're Ezekiel Elliott. It's a good game plan overall to try and win the football game, but it's bad if you're Zeke because you're just simply not going to get as many touches. I'm not saying Zeke is going to have some incredible season since he for sure looked worse on or actually it wasn't Sunday. I feel like I've been saying Sunday. That was the Thursday night game. He looked worse on Thursday night than I would have hoped he would look. But if I did, I don't own him, but if I did own him, I spent my first round pick on him, I would still be starting him. I wouldn't really be listening to offers because I know people are lowballing me. I would still be valuing him as maybe a lower end running back 1 right now, but still a running back 1. And so if that's the trade offers you're getting, you can take it if you want to, but I don't think people are going to offer that right now. And so I'd hold him. I'd still be starting him. And then obviously Pollard, like he needs to be owned 100% of leagues. That you guys all know that, but just to reiterate, like Pollard is a insanely good handcuff, an insanely high upside bench option. He obviously needs to be owned. He can't really be started right now though because he doesn't see enough volume. Next up, another situation we need to relax on is the Packers. I'm even more confident telling people just chill. Be completely fine. Like take a cue from Aaron Rodgers and relax. Okay. Adams is very clearly, if he's not first, he's a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. Regardless of the matchup, you're playing Devonta Adams 100% of the time. Aaron Rodgers is still like a mid-range quarterback 1. He should be started, and I would say most matchups. Maybe there'll be weeks where you could stream someone ahead of him, but Aaron Rodgers is still going to be fine. Aaron Jones is going to be fine. Adams is going to be fine. It was one bad game against a really, really good defense. If they'd come out here and just tanked against an awful defense, I might be concerned. The Saints have a good defense. They're a good team. It was just a bad week. One thing I'll say, and it's like encouraging from the Packers standpoint, when you wouldn't think you'd see something encouraging, is MVS, we thought like he was going to be the 2, right? We're like hoping at least that he's going to be the second wide receiver on this team. That was confirmed in week 1. He only had 3 receptions for 17 yards, but he tied Diggs for 4th in air yards. He ranked 8th among wide receivers in weighted opportunity rating. He's a really, really good buy low because he's going to cost nothing. I mean, he might be on free agency if he is, grab him. But he's a low-end bench option for a lot of people, and it's like, if you can get him for like the last player on your bench,
maybe they need like a running back with upside. You can get him on your bench. Like, and I'm talking like a backup running back. Not like not a Tony Jones,
Not like who's another like really not like a Pollard, like not guys like that where we're like, ooh, we really like this upside. Like just some scrub on your bench. If they're willing to take MVS for him, do it, right? Because I think he's got a lot of upside in these games where they're going off. MVS is going to have some really high upside weeks. Next up, Jaguars running backs. So going into the season, we knew there was going to be a split, right? And we knew that like the public was definitely going to think that James Robinson was going to go out there and have like 100% of touches. But we knew with the connection with Hyde and Urban Meyer and the fact that Hyde always, every team he's on, they give him more touches than they should, we knew Hyde was going to get work. But no one thought that it was going to be a near even split, right? No one was predicting that. No way I thought that was going to happen. Hyde was given 9 carries, 2 targets. Robinson was given only 5 carries and 6 targets. So basically it was like Hyde was the 1A on the ground with little receiving game work, and Robinson was used as a receiving back, which was not something I expected to see. I expected it to be like Robinson's in on this drive, and then this drive, and now Hyde gets a drive, and then we're back to Robinson, back to Hyde. Like I figured it was going to be something like that. Wasn't really the case. One positive, though, if we look at the snaps, Robinson played 64% of the snaps compared to only 34% for Hyde. So that is kind of the split I thought was going to happen. 64, I guess 65 to 35. That's what I kind of thought the split was going to be, but for touches, not to be even in the touches. Now, maybe that was just like chance, like who happened to be on the field. Maybe Hyde just got lucky with these touches. But then also just the fact that this game did not play out how the Jaguars were expecting it to play out. They definitely were not able to use the game plan they originally intended to have for this game, which I do believe had more touches for James Robinson. But regardless, this is a downgrade. This is a downgrade for Robinson. This is obviously a bad team. Like no one thinks that the Jaguars are an amazing team. They're obviously better on offense and defense. They're not a great defense. They're a decent offense. They'll have upside, but it's not a good team overall. So the touchdowns are not going to be super high for Robinson. We knew that going in, but it's a bigger downgrade when Hyde clearly has a larger role than we thought. Hyde, obviously, I think both need to be owned in every league size, every single league, because if Robinson goes down, Hyde's a stud. If Hyde goes down, Robinson's a stud. But while they're both healthy, it's like not a great situation for either one of them. I would honestly not feel good about starting Robinson, especially this coming week against the Broncos. So if I did own him, again, I don't own him, so I can't tell you exactly what I'm doing. But if I owned Robinson against the Broncos, he's probably on my bench, unless I have basically no other options. And then obviously Hyde needs to be on the bench because he's the backup to like the guy that I just benched, right? Next up, we have the god that is Jameis Winston. I saw a tweet earlier today that pointed out Brady currently leads the league in interceptions, but Winston leads the league in touchdowns, which is basically the opposite of something that you would expect. Sort of wild to think about. I have mixed feelings on Winston. Like, obviously the arrow is pointing up, right? Whatever we thought going into Sunday, arrow pointing up. That was a really good game. They crushed it. He did really, really well. Maybe he just couldn't see before the surgery. Maybe that is a thing. I still view him as a really, really good streaming option in games where we expect the Saints to have to throw the ball a lot. But especially while Thomas is out, I think that's where it's capped. I don't think he's like a weekly must start. I think that in tough matchups, maybe we're keeping him on the bench. I know he had a great game because of 5 touchdowns, but he's not throwing 5 touchdowns every week. Like, they're going to run some in. Taysom Hill is going to steal some. Like, that's going to happen. I would say he's worth adding in leagues where you either have a deep bench, so you have like 7 bench spots. I think he's worth adding. If you're in a deeper league, 14, 16 team leagues, worth adding. Or if you didn't draft a top 5 tight end or top 5 quarterback, and you want him. So if you drafted someone like Kyler in a 12-team league, no, it's just not worth your time, not worth your bench spot picking up Winston. But if you drafted, say, Tannehill, if you want to use your last bench spot on Winston for that upside, I'm absolutely fine doing it. I'm not blowing a lot of my budget to do so. I prefer to just add him. But if you want to spend $1 or $2, like 1 to 2% of your budget on Winston because you really, really think he's going to go off this season, you think he's a great backup for streaming stuff, I'm totally fine doing it. I am personally not going to do it because in every single league, I
did draft a high-end quarterback. I think my quarterbacks are Kyler, Dak, and Josh Allen. Pretty sure those are my quarterbacks. I'll have to check again. So I'm not going to be adding them because that breaks my rule of top 5 quarterback. But if you really do want them, it's fine if you follow the rules I just said. Next up, let's go over these Lions running backs. Now, Swift played 68% of the offensive snaps, was given 11 carries, 11 targets, which he turned into 104 yards and a score. Worth noting that 43 of those receiving yards, or 43 of those total yards in general, and a touchdown all came on one play. So he wasn't like overly efficient before that. He was still like really good, but I would say like, a good chunk of his production came on that one touchdown. And then Williams played on 35% of the snaps, so a very similar split to what James Robinson and Hyde had. And a kind of a similar situation happened. 9 carries, 9 targets. So even though we have 68% of the snaps for Swift and 35% way down here for Williams, it was 11 carries, 11 targets for Swift, 9 carries, 9 targets. So the snaps were kind of far apart, but the touches were very, very similar. And he turned those touches, talking about Williams here, in 110 yards and a score. So really, really nice running back production from both of them. Very, very encouraging. One issue I have is that it was unsustainable, like that level of volume. I think everyone's going to understand that. They were down 28 points early in the third quarter, so they were obviously playing softer coverage for like the entire second half. But the biggest thing is that they ran 84 offensive plays, which led the league in week 1. If you look back to last season, the Chargers led the league last year with 70 plays per game. So even if you expected the Lions to lead the league in plays per game, like they're going to lose, I would say, at least 15 plays per game, right? So just understand that conceptually. They ran a ton of plays. On average, you're going to have to take away a minimum of 15 of those plays every single week. And so that's going to hurt the floor of these running backs, right? Because if you remove 15 plays, are you dropping Jamal Williams down to like 7 carries, 7 targets? It's a much different story if that happens. With that being said, they're going to lose most of their games this season. So this isn't some outlier where they're facing soft coverage for the only time this season. They're going to lose a ton of games. And so maybe it is possible that in a lot of second halves, they're facing all these garbage time plays and they're able to rack up a ton of receptions. I am viewing Swift right now as like a low-end running back 1, especially in a full PPR league. That gets a lot worse in like a standard scoring format. I don't think many of you play that, so it's not worth going over. But in the full PPR league and half PPR league, you're going to have a lot of receptions. And so it does seem like he's fully good to go over this groin injury. And so I would say low-end 1 to high-end 2 is kind of where I view him. Obviously, that depends on the matchup, but on average, that's roughly there. And then Williams is a really, really high upside bench option, especially if Swift went down. Realistically, you could, in the right matchup, use him in the running back 2 spot, the flex spot, and I'd be totally fine with that, or your second flex spot. That'd be really nice. But I would say that just remember, that's my biggest thing here. Remember that they ran 84 offensive plays on Sunday. That is a lot of plays, and so that's going to lead to a lot fewer targets, a lot fewer total carries. So just watch this next week. But again, I think you're starting Swift for sure. And Williams, it's more if you're desperate in like that flex, running back 2, second flex spot. Final situation we'll go over today is the Washington football team. Again, I know I didn't go over every single situation across the entire NFL, but you can ask more questions on the Discord if you got all in on the website. And then also we have the trade video. We have the start sits. I've got the rest of season rankings going up. We've got trade information on the site. We've got the rankings on the site. There's plenty of other spots you can go to besides just this video. And I went over the ones that you guys requested the most. As for the football team, we are basically back to square one, right? And that's really unfortunate. Heinicke, Heinicke's better than a lot of backup quarterbacks, so this isn't just some dumpster fire the team's going to turn into, but like we wanted Fitz. We wanted the upside and the aggressiveness of Fitz. So I understand Heinicke's not trash, but he's also a backup for a reason, right? He's a backup quarterback, and so this is bad. McLaurin, Logan Thomas, Antonio Gibson, those are the players, really the only players that you're considering starting each week on Washington. I'm excited about Tommy Brown. I'm excited about Curtis Samuel. But once Samuel returns, it kills Brown. And Brown kind of hurts Samuel. Plus Samuel keeps getting hurt. And so it's like you're looking at those three. McLaurin, Thomas, and Gibson. McLaurin is still a high ceiling option, but a higher or a lower ceiling than before and a lower floor than before. So not great. He's probably a must start unless it's a really difficult matchup. Just understand that he's a worse must start than he was before. Logan Thomas is still a really solid tight end option because tight end is trash, and so he doesn't get impacted too much. Obviously, it's a downgrade there, but like you still got to start him because there's not that many great tight ends. Gibson gets a downgrade. It's not as big as people think though because he got the role, and it stinks so much that Fitz went down because this is what we were waiting for with Gibson. He only played 65% of the offensive snaps, but he dominated the running back touches. He got the carries, 20 carries. He got the targets, 5 targets. It's clear. He's the guy. They're focusing this offense around Antonio Gibson, and so it's so unfortunate that they just cannot seem to solve the quarterback situation. But regardless, Heineke hurts him, but it doesn't crush him. You're starting Antonio Gibson every single week. This offense is going to be focused around him. He's going to get a ton of touches. So, hope that answers a lot of your questions this week. Remember, like I just said, you can ask other questions in the Discord if you have all in. Remember, we have the trade video coming. We have start-sit videos coming. We've got a ton of content on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So there's plenty of spots you can go to answer the rest of your questions. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting that like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.